Welcome to P.A.S.S. We are Patience.
Elena.
Sam.
Shannon.
Sophia.
Today we are just discussing students' First Amendment rights and when the school should get involved. With us today is Mr. Sal Maiorana to share his view. He is a former teacher and currently an assistant principal at Fitch High School.
The situation we'll be discussing today is about the Mahanoy Area School District versus BL case, which occurred in 2018. A cheerleader known as BL, due to her minor status, tried out for her school's varsity cheerleading team but ended up making her JV team instead. She was upset about this, so she took her emotions to social media and decided to speak negatively about the school, using offensive language which upset the school's administration. They decided to punish her, which her and her family felt was unfair, so they took it to court. The case went so far that it reached the Supreme Court, meaning it was a big deal. The court ruled in the student's favor and said that due to the fact that she was not on school grounds, they could not punish her due to her free speech rights in the First Amendment. So, as a principal, do you believe the court case was fair and the ruling was appropriate?
So overall, I think that the courts made the appropriate decision. So as a principal, we do have the right, even if something's off of school property or after school hours, to intervene, but it's all based off of the severity of what was said. And so she may have been using inappropriate language that during the school day might be an issue, but off of school grounds, I do think she was expressing her opinion of what happened, and maybe not the best way. So I do think that the courts made the right decision. And if you look at more of the detail with the courts, I think that the extension to what they said, that they did say schools have the right to intervene and that students do lose some of their rights on social media when referencing the school. But this one was kind of egregious in how they acted. So I would agree with that.
So going along with that, if this case were to occur here at Fitch, would you choose to punish a student in the same way or different?
I don't know if I would use the word punish. I think this is a learning opportunity. High school students in particular have a lot of access to social media. And I think this is a good learning lesson for her that what you say matters. And sure, like, okay, you're not going to get in trouble. You're going to leave my office after this conversation and be fine. But you need to think about how we represent ourselves on social media. Someone who wants to be a varsity cheerleader in this example, that's not the best way to act. So I think it's a good learning experience. I don't know if punishment would be, maybe a conversation might be punishment, but I think I would stop there.
Personally, I think I kind of would have given her like a detention. I don't think
I think the fact that it went to like Supreme Court was kind of like ridiculous. I mean, I don't think it should have been taken that far, but I mean, that's my opinion.
I think we've all said something really stupid about school or our workplace on social media before, so.
And it's a good lesson to learn because you can say what you want,
right?
But there's consequences. Now here, do her consequences entail getting in trouble at school? I don't know. That's where you get with the law, and like you said, the Supreme Court got involved because you still have your freedom of speech and you can say things that you want as long as you're not inciting violence and stuff. And she wasn't. And I would agree with, if you said that she should get detention, maybe if it was during the school day. But even then, they could have fought it up to the Supreme Court level, even if it was just a detention, because you still have that right. So, in every discipline that we hand out, we think of it's not just, well, you did this, so here's what you get. We want you to learn something from it. So that's, again, my big push for something like this.
Okay. So, like, smaller cases like that are obviously a bit easier to handle and easier to like dictate whether we punish them or whether we just teach them a lesson. So obviously mass student events are a bigger thing, like when they choose to protest in different ways you're trained to handle that. How do you think you would handle like a peaceful protest? Like there's nothing happening yet and just calm.
So when you get to like a peaceful protest, depending on what it is, you have to realize that like the whole school still needs a function. So honestly, my opinion with something like that, I would want the student group that's organizing it. I think the best way to approach it is to come talk to school administration and say, here's what we want to do. Because at the end of the day, you can just say, hey, on the down low, we're all going to walk out at 1:00. Peacefully just walk out of class. And we're going to go and walk to, I don't know, Wendy's. So can you do that? Well, yeah, if you guys are all walking out, we can't stop you. But at the same time, as principals, we're in charge of your safety. So if you're leaving the school grounds, sure, like you're going to get in trouble for that because we can't have you do that. We can't. What if you're hit by a car? All these other things. That's why if you come and approach us, hey, you want to have a conversation or whatever, maybe you guys can all walk out of class and go to the auditorium or the football field and so we can still teach you guys how to like do it in a way that you don't get in trouble. At the same time, you know, you have to also think, well, for every action there's a consequence. So maybe you want to walk out and, you know, I don't care what the consequences are. And that's something that comes with, you know, I can't protest. If I want to go join a protest at 12 o'clock today, I can't just leave here. There's consequences. I can, but there's consequences for my job. And I think it's a good lesson for you guys to learn at the high school level. And if you really care about something, do it the most constructive way that'll get you the most heard.
Yeah.
Of course. So how do you kind of like stop this kind of disruption before it happens?
You mean like how do we stop
Like if you knew it beforehand, like how do you approach it?
I would, so if we heard that there was going to be some kind of protest and it was with a certain group, I would like to meet and talk to those individuals that are probably spearheading the organization and just to learn, you know, what they're concerned about, because I think it's good to know what you guys care about. And then B, again, kind of going back to what I said, how can we do this appropriately so we don't get in trouble and whatever message that you're trying to get out, we can get it heard to the best of our ability.
What do we kind of do when it's already in action? And I don't know how to word this, but
So like something's going on
yeah, like it's already happening and you like didn't really know about it
and
beforehand.
you have to like make the decision, am I going to join in, like
Yeah.
participate or like not participate or like
when the students are already just kind of out, like they're gone, like you did not know about this beforehand. How do you think like
I would handle
Yeah.
that? So at that point, student safety would be our number one concern, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
You know, if we have a bunch of kids gathering in the gymnasium, that's easy to handle. You know, we just make sure who's there, make sure there's no one in the halls, and we know where everyone's at. I'm okay with that. That's pretty easy. But if we have kids like leaving the property or even like going into the parking lot, I mean, you've seen people drive through our parking lot, they fly through it.
Yeah.
So even there, we would look at, well, how can we, if there's a bunch of kids going out, we can't like get everyone to come back in. How can we make it as safe as possible? And then deal with the aftermath of that once everyone is either back where they're supposed to be or, you know, school day's over and we've all gone home.
Of course.
Okay. Would it violate our rights to protest if you punished everyone who, like, protests?
So you have the right to do it, but there's also, again, when school comes into play, school safety is our number one concern, and students give up some of their rights for school safety. You can't say anything you want at a school, and that comes into play even with protesting. You can walk out and leave, but there's consequences for it because now you've left the school. We can't control what happens if you walk to Wendy's, and something bad can happen to you. That's a really big concern. So at the same time, that's where, again, I always go back to how can we work with you guys to make it safe? And that's our number one concern. When you guys organize something like this, it's not that we don't want your message to get out. It's if you're walking off campus, you're doing something like that, safety comes into play.
Yeah, that makes sense. When do the protocols call for external forces like the police? When are you supposed to bring them in or de-escalate it?
That's on a case-by-case basis. If we know we're going to have tons of students doing something, you know, there's only 4 principals and we have teachers who are in classes. Not every kid's participating, so we can't pull teachers out of rooms. So if there's going to be hundreds of kids, we would want, again, police presence, not to like arrest you guys, but to just help us. If we have cars coming across, they can stop cars, stuff like that. So again, it's just more like crowd management at that point to make sure that you are safe doing something like that.
Yeah, there are definitely many different forms of protests and petitions on and off of campus situations. Bringing it back to the Mahanoy area school district case versus BL, the school thought it was the best to step in even though the situation happened off the campus. So, Mr. Maiorana, how far do you think a situation has to reach for the school and principals to get involved?
So our concern with something like that is with school safety, and specifically, especially with like a student, so or a staff member. You know, if this student was really mad that she got cut from the cheerleading team or didn't make the team she wanted and was making threats against, say, the student who beat her out or maybe the teacher who cut her, the coach that cut her, then we would get involved because you can't again, safety is our number one concern when it comes to these matters. The content, not so much. So if you're really putting someone's safety at risk, I think it's time to step in. But if not, again, I think that conversation of what's smart to say and what not to say is a good starting point.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. Safety should be one of the biggest things that the school should care about. Even depending with students' opinions, I think that should be the biggest thing involved. So should not referencing as punishment, but do you think that different actions should depend on if it's on or off campus?
Yeah, legally it does, for sure. So there's certain things that you can do off campus that you can't do on campus. And that applies to like all adults. So like you can have a conceal and carry off campus and be legal for that. But when you come on campus, that right's gone. You're not allowed to have that because it's a public. So I do think the consequences matter. And again, depending on how we address each situation, I think like we can approach it in that way as well. Like individual, what did you do? But the location does matter at times.
During this episode, we discuss First Amendment rights from the point of view of a principal and high school students. Without communication, no progress will be made regarding the importance of understanding our rights as students and how our principals should handle things.
Thanks to our guest, Mr. Maiorana. We appreciate your insight. And thank you to our listeners as well. We hope you continue to educate yourself in your First Amendment rights. We'll see you next time.